Good afternoon. My name is Joanie DiMartino. I'm the museum curator and site superintendent of the Prudence Crandall Museum here in Canterbury, Connecticut. And we are thrilled today to be partnering with the Otis Library and the Public Library of New London, Connecticut. To celebrate and honor Harris Sisters Month, which is an annual April event every year that honors the work of the Harris sisters, in particular Sarah Harris Fairweather and Mary Harris Williams. Today, we're going to be focusing on the graphic novel Surrounded, which has recently come out through NBM Publishing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of the background of the school, and then we're going to have a Q&A with the author, illustrator, and publisher who are joining us here this afternoon. So I just want to give a brief overview of the Canterbury Female Boarding School, because there may be people joining us today that are not familiar with the history that this graphic novel is sharing the story of. And in 1832, Prudence Crandall was the white principal of the Canterbury Female Boarding School, and she was approached by a young Black woman who was 20 years old at the time named Sarah Harris, who asked to attend the school. Encouraged by conversations with both Harris and Mariah Davis, a Black woman who worked for Crandall, and also shared copies of the newspaper The Liberator, which was an abolitionist newspaper at the time, Crandall agreed to admit Sarah Harris as a full-time student. When residents protested the school's integration and parents threatened to withdraw their students, Crandall closed her school and reopened in 1833 for Black and brown students. Students traveled from several states to attend the school, and Connecticut responded by passing the Black Law, which prevented out-of-state Black and brown students from attending school in Connecticut towns without local town approval. Crandall was arrested, spent one night in jail, and faced 3 court trials before the case was dismissed. In September of 1834, a nighttime mob attack closed the school, and these events made national and international news. And also galvanized the burgeoning abolitionist movement at the time. Many of the students, such as Julia Williams, Mary Miles, and also Mary Harris, which we're going to talk about today, went on to become educators, reformers, and leaders in their communities. Crandall versus Connecticut impacted 2 U.S. Supreme Court cases, Dred Scott versus Sanford and Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, and also laid the foundation for the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. The Prudence Crandall Museum is the building as you see it here today, is owned and operated by the state of Connecticut through the State Historic Preservation Office. It is an international site of conscience, a national historic landmark, an archaeological preserve, and Prudence Crandall is the official state heroine of Connecticut. So this is an actual image of some of the characters in the graphic novel. I just wanted to show their images today. We have Prudence Crandall and the 2 Harris sisters there. And I just wanted to show an image from the novel itself, and this is probably my favorite page in the whole book. It's the rendering of that catalyst moment when Sarah Harris is about to request admission as an official student, and you can see Prudence Crandall at the bottom is very aware that Sarah Harris is not just simply asking about this educational question that she has, that there's something deeper here. And I want to take a moment to thank NBM Publishing, because books were extremely important to Prudence Crandall. As you can see, we have this quote here where her husband actually would not allow her to read certain books, but she went and read them anyway. She believed in reading to find all sides, searching for the truth, whether it was in science, religion, or humanity. This is a quote from her later in life from 1887. And, you know, I think it's exciting when we have new mediums, new artistic interpretations of this story, because I think it helps us reach so many more people as well, who may not always hear our story through the traditional avenues of, you know, just coming to visit the museum. And now I'm going to get to our featured speakers today. Wilfrid Lupano was born in Nantes in 1971, but it was in Pau that he would spend the majority of his childhood, which was spent buried in his parents' comic book collection. That doesn't surprise anyone, I think. Although his wild imagination and interest in writing is due above all to his love for role-playing games. As a young adult, Lupano worked in bars to finance his studies, a combination of philosophy and English. He has since blossomed with a multitude of graphic novels published with many prominent publishers and has been the recipient of a number of awards, including 2 Eisner nominations. And born in 1985, Stephane Fert grew up in the southwest of France. He obtained a diploma in animation in Paris. It is notably thanks to his taste for role-playing games that he learns to tell stories. As for images, he was first influenced by modern painting and was passionate about working with colors. But he was also interested in animation and in particular the artist Mary Blair. He has received numerous prizes for his remarkably personal and accomplished style. And I just want to take a moment to show, because of this, I looked up Mary Blair actually because of that inspiration. And this is an image of her here and 2 of her images based on Alice in Wonderland that she was creating for Disney, that led to the kind of iconic images from Disney's Alice in Wonderland movie that we know of today. And what I loved about this in particular is that you can really see Fert's, I guess, honoring her tradition there in some of his interpretations of this particular story, of this nighttime scene of the students gathering together in the woods. I just love that, but you can see her influence. And as we are a Museum of Women's History, I just wanted to hold up Mary Blair in honor of his work today. And of course, Wilfrid Lupano's script writing. This particular scene occurs early in the book where he is setting the scene and establishing character traits, where the Mariah Davis character is, very much focused on seriousness in work. And Sarah Harris is really asking questions about the world, which leads to her asking to attend the school. And then I just want to end the PowerPoint briefly with just, thanking both Dargaud, Europe Comics, and NMB. You can see the many different translations. I think Swedish was the most recent one. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But, this story in this format is allowing us to reach readers of graphic novels all over the world. And so I'm very excited to see this story flourish. And I am beyond thrilled today to be able to explore the process of how this all occurred with Lupano and Fert today. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. And I think, the standard question we always get as authors and writers would be for Wilfrid Lupano, and that is, how did you learn about this story of the Canterbury female boarding school, and why did you select this story to turn it into a graphic novel?
Good evening, everybody. The first time I heard about the story was in some researches that I was doing. I had a former plan for a graphic novel, which was to talk about 2 famous abolitionists guys of that time. One was Garrison, the William Lloyd Garrison, the publisher of the Liberator newspaper, and the other one was Frederick Douglass, the black abolitionist man who educated himself. And those 2 guys were very active at that time, very activist at that time in the abolitionist movement, and they had, of course, a common goal, but they had different ways to reach that goal. Garrison wanted to educate the American people and was against violence. And he was convinced that by talking about the subject all the time, he could wake up the conscience of the people and make slavery stop just by educating people. And Frederick Douglass was sure that black people would have to take arms and to get freed by themselves. So it was impossible for them to reconcile their views. And when I was so my plan was to talk about this kind of fight inside the abolitionist movement between these two guys who had a lot of respect one for each other, by the way. And in the books that I read about this man, I saw that they both uh, support the Prudence Crandall fight. It's a few lines in the book about William Lloyd Garrison, and then it's a few lines also in the book I read about Frederick Douglass. So I said to myself, what is this school that I didn't hear about before? So I started to search about what was exactly at stake in this little school that nobody talked about. And this is how I discovered the story of Prudence Crandall and the school. And then suddenly my mind changed because it occurred to me that William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass were both quite famous as abolitionists, and that I will probably be doing one more book about those guys who are already well known for their fight. And I realized that there was no books, almost no books at all about Prudence Crandall fight and the schoolgirls, of course, and especially in France, especially in French language, there was nothing at that time, and I think it's still the case. I think we're still the only book about about this story. So I decided to focus on this story uh, because you know how it goes. It's always the story, the man who are put in the light, you know, who are in the light during for the great fights, and never the women. So I decided to change my focus and put the light on Prudence Crandall for this reason.
Thank you for doing so. I remember you were attending an American Library Association conference back in 2018, and you had visited the museum, and you were already well into working on that manuscript. How did your visit to the museum itself influence your manuscript in any way?
Actually, when I came to visit the school and when I met you, Joanie, the writing was almost finished. It was because my trip to United States was not planned a long time ago, so it was like an occasion for me. The conference you mentioned was in Washington, D.C. So I managed to stay a few more days, rent a car, and drove 7 hours to come and see you in in Connecticut because I was closer than ever. So you know, so the manuscript was almost finished, but it was very important for me to come and have some kind of validation, confirmation of my instincts and my feeling impressions about how life would be organized around the school, but also the neighborhood, you know, because I of course it was difficult for me to imagine how the city was organized around the school. So it helped me a lot to visualize, and also maybe you remember, but I filmed everything and I shot hundreds of pictures for Stephane so that he could have good material to draw, because my script was finished, but then his work was about to start. So I wanted to have I wanted him to have the best material to have a kind of realistic. Stephane is not a realistic artist, you know, but still it's important that he could imagine how things were organized in the school.
Stephane, can you talk a little bit about how that inspired your artistic illustrations of the book, how those images and maybe some of the text influenced how you approached the project?
Je vais parler en français et quelqu'un va traduire ou
Ouais, je traduis, oui. C'est clair, la question est claire?
quelles sont mes influences pour
Co-
pour le...
Ouais, comment ces photos, en fait, de Wilfrid t'ont inspiré? Est-ce que ça t'a aidé?
Non, bah, comme a dit Wilfrid, moi je travaille pas de façon réaliste, donc je suis pas allé chercher des détails dans les photos qui auraient pu aider mes dessins, mais non, mais Wilfrid a assez bien résumé la chose, ça m'a permis d'imaginer une ambiance, d'imaginer voilà, des couleurs et tout ça. Mais c'est vrai qu'on n'a pas cherché avec Wilfrid de toute façon à faire quelque chose de, comment dire, d'historiquement détaillé, quoi. Ce qui nous intéressait, c'était vraiment les interactions entre personnages, les ambiances, les
Attends,
personnalités.
ouais,
Oui,
je
vas-y.
peux traduire. Ouais. As Wilfrid said, yes, my style is not realistic, and our objective was not to be precisely, historically, absolutely exact in the rendering, but the images, the photos, they helped me get the feeling, get the atmosphere of the place. Yeah, oui. Tu disais les personnages,
Oui,
pardon.
non, non, mais voilà, bon, c'est un dessin qui est plus sur l'émotion des personnages et sur l'émotion des lieux que vraiment un dessin qui cherche à donner du détail. Parce qu'au fond, bon voilà, je pense que Wilfrid pourra confirmer, mais ce qui nous intéressait dans cette histoire, c'était pas de raconter quelque chose du passé, mais au contraire de raconter une histoire qui nous paraissait résonner avec l'actualité.
Oui.
Donc voilà.
Okay. So yes, our style did not have to be extremely realistic because our objective was really to transmit to the emotion of the characters and the emotions of the place. So because our objective was not to tell a story of the past, but to tell a story that can resonate today with what's happening in the world today.
Love that response. Yeah, so along those lines, actually, I found the artistic renderings of the painful aspects of the story in the script very sensitive, and I feel like they really honored the characters' journeys throughout the story. How did you approach illustrating the violence?
Donc, pour résumer la question, Joanie a adoré comment vous avez représenté les moments difficiles, les moments durs.
Alors, oui, alors c'est intéressant parce que moi j'ai trouvé ça assez difficile d'abord à dessiner ces moments durs parce que j'étais vraiment dans l'émotion de la BD. Je me suis pas vraiment posé de questions. Il me semblait que le style que j'avais développé était assez réaliste enfin était assez, comment dire, descriptif pour être dans l'émotion mais à la fois permettait aussi d'avoir un petit peu une distance. C'est l'intérêt aussi de développer un graphisme qui est pas trop réaliste, justement. Donc, pour moi, on était vraiment sur un fil entre à la fois ne pas minimiser la violence et à la fois que l'histoire ne soit pas, ne pas non plus choquer, parce que c'était choquer pour choquer. Voilà. Donc c'était quelque chose d'assez difficile et c'était toujours une espèce comment dire, de juste milieu à trouver, quoi.
So for me, it was really difficult. It was difficult because I also was moved by what I was supposed to draw about. But then I thought I shouldn't, think too much about it because I think my style does manage to, although it's not realistic, but it does manage to transmit the emotion because this was my way of coping with this problem. I had to transmit the emotion, but still keeping a distance from what's happening, not be too emotional myself so that I can actually manage to transmit it properly. So I think, yeah, we managed to find a way to talk about painful things, but without becoming too violent, without our work to avoiding for our work to shock the reader. So we had to transmit the emotion, but without shocking too much.
I will add something if you don't mind, because the question starts with the writing. Actually, we asked ourselves a lot of questions about that with Stephane, because we wanted to have a final result that was readable by young people, and we wanted young reader for, let's say, 11 or 12 years old to be able to read the novel. So we didn't want to go into explicit violence, though we didn't want to evacuate it. And this is why, for instance, we have this scene where Sarah is followed by two horsemen in the woods, and there is a tension, and we understand that anything could happen to her, and because at that time there is absolutely nothing to protect a black young girl from being raped or harassed or any kind of aggression that she could go through. And we wanted this to be like a feeling, like an atmosphere, but we didn't go into showing it in a too explicit way, because of the question of the readers, of the explicit content. So yes, as Stephane said, we didn't want to go into something that could be some kind of trauma porn that is always very efficient in storytelling. Sorry. The only exception we did is the death of the young guy, because this is a turning point in the story, and this moment is a game changer. So we wanted to have this explicit scene at this moment, but here again we decided to have it in the distance. The scene is seen from the distance.
Thank you. Yes, as someone who tells this story very often, and I think Jennifer can attest as well, that there are times where you feel very close to it, and you want to make sure, at least from my perspective as a museum curator, make sure visitors have that time to reflect as well as connect to the story as well. And so I think that works for readers too in this novel. Since you referred to that character, Wilfrid, can you talk a little bit about, I think he's in the French edition, it's Sauvage, but his character is called Feral in the English version. Can you talk about the role that he plays overall in a book about a female boarding school?
Yes, Feral is a fictional character. Of course, there's no track of such a character in the real school history. I wanted to have him around because for me he stands for a lot of things, and especially he stands for he comes as a counterpoint of the theory, not the theory, but the hope that these girls have in the school, that they will be able to change their life through education. And there is a movement at that time already. It's still the case today, but at that time it's already the case. There is a movement in the Black independence movement, which is get educated by the white. It will still be the education of the masters, and you won't get white through the education of the white. You're just taking the wrong way. You're not setting yourself free by getting educated by the white people. This is a voice that I wanted to exist in the book, and Farrell is closer in that regard. He's closer from the Frederick Douglass point, which is set yourself free. This is the only way. But his way to set himself free is to live alone in the woods and to, in a way, leave the civilization. This is why he calls himself feral, and he's like a black Huckleberry Finn, you know, wandering around, and in the same time he's fascinated by the school, and of course a bit seduced by the girls inside.
Yeah, he certainly, I think, serves as a foil and does present some of those harder questions that I think the students have to consider, and you know, they challenge themselves with as well, and each other throughout the novel. Yeah.
And sorry, Joanie, the other point important is that he also is the voice speaker of the Nat Turner event, because I make like a balance between two histories, like two stories, sorry, in this book, which is the Prudence Crandall school story, and the Nat Turner story, which took place. Sorry, can't remember the date. I think it was 7 years before, or something like that.
1831, just a couple years before, like
yeah,
a
couple of years before, but 700 or 800 kilometers away from this. But still, the whole United States at that time were traumatized by what happened, and what happened was just a few slaves who set them free and killed white people, freed the slaves to be even more people, to go to the next house, and finally kill something like 60, 65, I think, white people, children, old people. It kind of a massacre. They were all killed, and of course, and there was a lot of fear at that time of those black emancipation movement, especially because Nat Turner knew how to read and was a good speaker, and nobody really knew how he managed to learn how to read. But of course, a lot of people at that time said, see what happens when black people pretend to educate themselves and to try to understand what's in the Bible and everything. They don't get anything right, and in the end they go crazy and kill everybody.
Yeah, that's an excellent point that you mentioned, that perspective from the early 19th century, because the Nat Turner rebellion did influence the decision to not allow a school in New Haven in 1831 that was being created for young black men. It was going to be a college of was manual labor and education. And that school, when it went to a city vote, 700 voted against it, and only 4 people voted for it. And part of those arguments that you had mentioned in relation to Nat Turner were the arguments that were used in New Haven, which is, I guess, about an hour's drive from Canterbury, from where we're at. Many of the people, I do want to mention too, that originally supported that school then turned their support to Crandall School when that opportunity opened. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate that story. Terry, this one's for you. How did you learn about the book, and what was it about it that confirmed your decision to publish a hard copy English version?
Yeah, well, yeah, I was presented this as I normally find out a lot at various conventions, such as Frankfurt, that I've been chatting with Leslie about, but also Angoulême, which is that big comics festival, and some other shows. I'm presented various leading books from Mediatoon and the whole family of Media Participation. That was pretty striking. I thought the art was very expressive, and that it presented an important story that is not that well known. Even here in the United States, it doesn't really get all that much play, and that's definitely lacking. So there was a very interesting angle there that needed to be brought out and needed to be made public, and have people be aware that this happened and how important this was. I was very excited to add this to our catalog.
Thank you. I'm glad you did. We're selling it at the museum, of course. With the English translation, did that change anything in the text? Were there any linguistic challenges, or was this simply kind of publishing the English version that was already in an ebook?
Yeah, we primarily just took the version that had been translated for Europe Comics on site. We did some tweaks on that, as we have to sometimes. But essentially, we had taken what had been done and thought it was a very good translation that worked quite well.
Wonderful. I'm going to open this up to other people for questions as well. Does anyone have questions that they would like to contribute also? I do have a few other questions, but I just figure at this point we're kind of having a conversation. So
yes, if I could please. First of all, merci beaucoup for the book and for helping to raise the visibility of this story. And so I'm wondering what the reception has been in the different European countries where you have been sharing the book. And you mentioned also the many translations, and obviously you're not following the market in all of those countries. But I'm just interested how Europeans are receiving the story and receiving it at this specific moment in time. Thanks again.
Tu veux que je réponde, Stéphane?
Bah non, vas-y toi. Oui,
Ouais,
vas-y,
okay.
réponds.
We had a pretty good success with this book. We are pretty happy by the way it was received in France, especially. Europe is very the comic markets in Europe is very weird. You have two countries reading a lot of comic books, which are France and Belgium. The other countries, comic book is not so big. So even if you have a big success in a country like Germany or England or Sweden, it's very humble it's very few in terms of sales, But in France and Belgium, we did pretty good. Especially, we had different awards in school programs, in high school programs. We had two, maybe three, I think, and it was very rewarding for us, and also very interesting because these awards, they go with meetings. You go in high schools and you talk with classes, like many classes, and from all over France. So these awards led to a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations, and it was the occasion to talk about this crucial question of education with young people of today. And it was already very interesting. It was always very interesting to have these conversations with the youth. So yes, it was a very good news for us. And The book is also going very well in Spain, as far as I know, because Spain is also a rather big market. So yes, so far it's very interesting, and it's also very rewarding to see that we are still having new translations regularly, like every year or every 2 years we have a new one, which is good for the circulation of the story, of course. But as you said, as Terry said, the story is not known, very known in the US. So you can imagine that in France, nobody knew about this story, nobody at all. We totally popularized this story out of nowhere because it was totally unknown here. You couldn't, at the time I did the book, I think there was not even a French enter in Wikipedia about the school. I had to go to the English Wikipedia to have news. So you basically the story was totally unknown. It's not the case anymore. So
Glad for that, yes. What other sources did you use besides Wikipedia? I know Jennifer's book wasn't out until this year, so what resources did you use to help shape your journey there with the story?
I used books about different books about abolitionism movements, articles online, a lot of online articles, historical articles that I found online, especially in English, and that was it. I didn't have much, and I and there's also a children book telling the story of the school. It's an old one, I think. I discovered it at the Library of Canterbury, by the way.
Yeah, I'm trying to think that might have been the Forbidden Schoolhouse cover of it, of the school, and the book that's still, I think, being used in some classrooms and some libraries as well. Once you had kind of garnered all your resources together and you had started the writing process, was there anything that surprised you? I know as a writer myself that if I'm kind of bored with my own writing, then the reader is going to be bored. So, I'm always, looking for those moments where I'm challenged as a writer and I'm kind of surprised at the direction that my writing goes in. So I wondered if there were any of those particular moments that you had writing this.
Well, I will say that yes, when I decided to talk about the Prudence Crandall School, there was a time where I had all the material and I knew exactly what I wanted the story I wanted to tell, but something was disturbing me, and I couldn't spot it exactly, but I knew that there was something that was disturbing me, and at that moment. So I let this story go for a few months, and I wrote some others, and then I went back to it. And in between this time, I started to hear about the concept of white saving, and this concept I didn't know about because it was not very popular in France before, and it popped up at that time, and I realized that there was a danger to tell that story as another example of white savism, and this is where I suddenly decided to change my focus on the schoolgirls and not denying the work of Prudence Crandall, not put her on the cover and not making her disappear of her own story, because this is her story. But I wanted to have a better balance between the different characters, and I decided to take the group of the girls as a character. Like they form like a little community. So, and they're the I had the feeling that they were the people who were really in danger, because at that time nobody would have dared wound, hurt or killed Prudence Crandall, because she was a very appreciated white woman. But these girls, they were really in danger. Some people tried to poison her. The doctor didn't even want to come to see one of them when she was sick. So I wanted to have more focus on the girls and a little bit less on Prudence Crandall, just to get out of this white savism logical circle, you know. So this was the moment why I changed the whole writing.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. And that's really important too. We did the same thing with the museum, with the new exhibit that we installed after the restoration, because when you visited, we were actually in the process of removing everything out of the museum to complete a restoration process. And then we reopened with a new exhibit that we call Canterbury Female Boarding School: Courage, Conscience, and Continuance. And we do exactly the same thing that you did in your book, where we're highlighting the agency of the students. And we're not no longer speaking about Prudence Crandall, rather we're giving the students their agency back. And we also, in the museum, and I think Jennifer, of course, illustrates this in her book as well, which certainly influenced our exhibit, is we really showed how everyone, this was a really intersectional story where white men, white women, black men, and black women all worked together to create this opportunity and to push for equal access to education for everyone. The museum's vision statement now is, equal access to education across the globe. So, for me to hear you speak of the white savior concern, that was certainly something that we were addressing too over here as you were writing your book. Here's a question for all three of you, and that is, did participating in the creation of this book, whether writing, illustrating, or publishing, did it change your understanding of this history, or did it impact you in some way, knowing the story in, I think, a more intimate way that you have to be to address it from those different angles of writing, publishing, and illustrating?
Je commence?
Oui, tu peux.
Oui, bah, bien sûr, moi, ça m'a informé sur toute l'histoire du féminisme afro-américain. Et c'est tout l'intérêt pour moi de travailler, notamment avec Wilfrid, à chaque fois sur des nouveaux projets, c'est que ça m'amène à m'intéresser à des choses auxquelles je peux avoir une sensibilité, mais dont finalement je connais très peu de choses. Et évidemment, illustrer cette histoire m'a forcé à lire, à m'informer davantage, et notamment le fameux livre de Bell Hooks, Ne suis-je pas une femme, qui m'avait été un conseil de lecture de Wilfrid qui m'avait beaucoup marqué. Et donc, oui, bien sûr, moi, ça m'a fait progresser humainement de travailler là-dessus.
Yes,
Faire-
definitely. Creating this book, illustrating this book, helped me learn so much about Afro-American feminism, as is often the case also with when working with Wilfrid. He helps me. He helps me get into a deeper understanding on topics that maybe I had only heard about, but then while I have to work on them, I have to dive deeper. So in this case, I was forced to read a book by Bell Woods. C'est ça?
Bell Hooks.
Oui.
Bell Hooks.
Bell Hooks. Yeah, I had to
Am I
read
Not a Woman? The book is called Am I Not a Woman, from
Am
Bell
I
Hooks.
Not a Woman? So I had to read this book so that I really get a very good idea of the topic.
Yes, this is
Bell
what's
Hooks.
great
Yeah.
in our in our job, you know. This is what we do. We are first touched by something that we experience or we hear, and then we decide that we want to make a book about it. And this is where the problem arrives, you know, because you have to, you know, you have to, in a way, you have to educate yourself before to talk. Before to talk, you have to learn. So we spend a lot of time learning about the subject we want to talk about, and this is the exciting moment when we are looking for material, we are looking for resources, and then we share them, and we talk a lot. Also, Toni Morrison was a big inspiration also for this book. And especially this is a conversation that I remind of we had with Stephane at that time. I told him about this short novel that Toni Morrison wrote, where she has two characters, two female characters, and they're two of different colors. And at the end of the novel, at the short novel, I can't remember the name of the novel. At the end of the short novel, you cannot say which one is the white, which one is the black. You just understand that they're not from the same color. And this is a very smart exercise. Exercise de style. I don't remember how you say that in English. Nazeli, help me.
Exercise of style.
Exercise of style, yeah.
Yeah.
That Toni Morrison did at that time. And I had this little fantasy about being able to talk about skin color without showing the skin color. But of course, in comic books, it's impossible because you represent people. But Stephane has this great talent to be able to draw people in purple, blue, yellow, at different pages. They change color. So at that time, through the whole book, if you pay attention to it, the characters change, the skin color of the character change all the time, and it brings a kind of confusion about what are we talking about, you know. So this is the kind of inspiration we had through our researches and to reach our goal, you know.
So from my perspective, as I mentioned, this is a story that's not that well known in the US, and that's a pity. And I was no exception. I really didn't know that much about it. So it was a very interesting discovery for me when I read this book, and I, you know, did some more research and so forth into it, and got to know more about it, and especially its importance historically and leading to these Supreme Court decisions. That's very important. And so that was an inspiration, and definitely, you know, a discovery which I thought should be shared.
Thank you. Wow, this is such a rich conversation. I'd love to open it up again to the floor if anybody else has any comments, any questions. Alana?
Yeah, I would just like to say how incredibly impressed I am at the sensitivity with which all the main participants in producing this book brought to the project. Intercultural sensitivity, historical sensitivity, aesthetic sensitivity. Just a fantastic, fantastic achievement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I want to add just a few more words. First of all, direct thanks to Stephane for making the Crandall's appearance play along the edges of gender, because she was indeed a woman who was not fitting into the gender expectations and norms of the time. And I appreciate that you portrayed her that way. one of the things I was looking at in my work is how this is in some ways a story about sexuality, because these were teenage women who were brought into this village, and much of the critique was about intermarriage might happen and so on. And then there was always the threat of sexual violence. So understanding the many dimensions of sexuality as we do nowadays is something that can be telegraphed so much better in the visual format where you did it than in the academic format where I was trying to do it. So I appreciate that. And the other thing is, Wilfrid, I almost cried to hear you talk about the need to not fall into white saviorism, because I worked on my project for a very long time, essentially all century. And I had originally thought it would be another biography of Crandall, and I gradually came to understand that it needed to be something very different. And as I was coming to more of an anti-racist reading of it and focusing on the students, and I went back to the primary sources, and I realized that the person who never falls into the trap of white saviorism is Prudence Crandall herself. Every time she tells the story, she credits Mariah Davis and Sarah Harris every single time. She never takes credit. And the fact that you came to that realization, and I did, and we did this independently, continents apart, says something for the truth of it. And I am, that is a gift you have given me, un cadeau. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and I think it's also because it's in the air. As I said, I a few years ago I had never heard about this concept, and then suddenly in 2020, or 19, I think, I started hearing about it and get interested into it, and then it appeared very clearly in my mind as a concept, but before I didn't know it. So it came from the social networks and some articles in the newspapers, and then suddenly, so this is what hearing the others, listening to the others is about when you're an author. To me, you cannot be in your ivory tower and be sure that what you're doing is interesting. You have to have an ear around and stay linked to your time also. Also, I want to add about this point about the sexuality. I would like to mention something, is that yes, at that time I could, especially Bell Hooks talks about it a lot, is that the fantasy of the sexuality of the Black woman is so strong that for the white women at that time, the presence, the only presence of these young Black girls in the middle of the city is a threat. They are afraid that these girls are going to seduce their husband, their sons, and they will probably corrupt their flesh. And this is something that was present at that time. And this is also why the school didn't receive the support of so many white women. The two reasons was this question of the sexual fantasy about the Black woman sexuality. The other one was that the white women were not so much educated at that time. So if some Black women were suddenly educated, this girl will be on top of them on the social hierarchy. So it was not imaginable for them to have this Black girl be more educated than they were herself. So this we try to show by showing these female characters, these white female characters who are very concerned about this situation because they're not educated at that time and they're feared about the school also for this.
Et je voudrais rajouter aussi, déjà merci beaucoup pour voilà, tous ces mots gentils sur notre travail. Et justement, par rapport à la sexualisation des personnages dans cette BD, moi je suis assez fier effectivement d'avoir, je crois, réussi un petit peu quelque chose parce que c'est pas la première fois que j'entends dire, notamment par des femmes, que dans ce bouquin, elles étaient contentes de voir des corps non sexualisés qui sont avant tout des personnalités, des personnages et pas des objets. C'est quelque chose que j'entends souvent et j'en suis très fier, d'autant que dans la bande dessinée franco-belge, mais je pense que c'est pareil dans les comics américains, les auteurs ont une très forte tendance à vraiment sursexualiser le corps des femmes. Et donc, je pense qu'on a tapé assez juste avec Wilfrid en évitant une représentation qui je pense, aurait vraiment amené le livre dans quelque chose de faux et de gênant, quoi. Voilà.
Well, first, I'd like to thank you for the kind words regarding our work. And second, yes, I wanted to say that I am actually pretty proud of the result when it comes to describing the sexuality of the female bodies in the book, because it's not the first time I hear this comment. I'm receiving compliments about the way we represented the women without over-sexualizing them, keeping them a bit more neutral, because we did do this intentionally. We didn't want the book to be to lose this balance and to also simply be false, actually giving a false message, because as you might know, in Franco-Belgian comics, but also in American comics, often female characters are overly sexualized. It's so easy to fall into that trap. So we did everything we could to avoid it, and I think we managed pretty well, and I'm very happy with the result. And I'm glad that you noticed it as well.
Our two librarians, Julie and Angela, do either one of you have any final questions or thoughts you'd like to share?
I just want to thank you both, well, thank all of you for doing this for us and for a second time. We were so excited. I have to tell you, we were so excited when this was finally translated to English. I think I was calling Joanie and texting Joey so many times over the past few years. Have you heard anything? Is it coming out in English? We were so excited when we heard that it was finally going to be published in English. So congratulations, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good news for us too. Huh?
Yeah. Thank you for doing this with us. I'm in about the same place though. This has been a lovely discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Angela.
And yeah, the museum thanks you as well. And, you know, the Harris sisters have connections to both locations. Of course, they were originally born in Norwich, and they lived in New London, Connecticut for some time. So we have this kind of nice little collaboration between our three cities or towns of Canterbury, Norwich, and New London that are working together to continue this journey. And I'm sure that we'll be continuing to utilize this book in different ways and bringing it to other audiences as well. So thank you so very much. And again, just an open door, extended welcome. Anytime you're in the States again and you want to come by and see the museum, please do. We would love to have you here and maybe have some kind of event in the future. We'll see, you know, how things go, but that's certainly something we would love to keep on, you know, keep the door open for, essentially. So
great.
thank you.
We'll be glad too, also.